Try to imagine a winter night tens of thousands of years ago. No fireplace, no warm blankets, no bedroom lights. Outside the cave, icy winds cut through deep snow, and darkness stretches on, as if it will never end. And yet inside, prehistoric humans were able to sleep deeply, sleep long, and sleep peacefully in a way that modern people sometimes can't help but envy. They didn't fight winter. They didn't try to conquer the darkness. They learned to slow down, to draw inward, and to sleep as a form of survival. In this video you won't hear about wars or conflicts. There is only one very long night. A stone cave slowly warmed by fire, bodies resting close together, breathing, blending into the darkness, and sleep arriving naturally deep, complete and whole. If you're looking for a history story not to study but to rest, if you want to understand how our ancestors could sleep soundly through the harshest winters, stay here, let go, and begin with me. And before we enter the story, if you enjoy slow, gentle journeys through history like this one, please like, share and subscribe to the channel so we can continue finding peaceful sleep together through history. You're standing in a winter from a very long time ago. No calendar, no dates, just the cold. The cold doesn't arrive suddenly. It has been here for a long time, quietly covering the ground, seeping into the air, already waiting inside every passing wind. You feel it the moment you breathe in. The air enters your lungs, dry, sharp, and so cold, it's as if it carries invisible little shards of stone. Each breath makes your chest tighten slightly, not from pain, but because your body is trying to hold on to the last bit of warmth it still has. The wind moves across open land with nothing to stop it. It skims over the snow, lifts tiny grains of ice and lashes them into your skin. Your face, your hands, your neck, everything is exposed to nature. You don't have many layers. Just dried animal hide, rough, stiff, not enough to keep the cold from cutting deep. Every gust that passes leaves behind a sting of numbness, like a reminder of just how small you are in this world. Darkness comes early. The sun retreated a long time ago, leaving behind a lead-grey sky and a weak, dim light. Day and night don't seem to have a clear boundary anymore. There is only a long stretch of time, cold and silent, and as the light fades, the temperature drops with it. You feel that clearly in your flesh. Your body begins to tremble, not out of fear, but because survival instinct is speaking. You realize something with absolute clarity. Human beings in this moment are not strong. No heater, no brick walls, no glass windows, no electric light. Just a bare body in front of a vast, indifferent world. A body that gets tired, that gets hungry, that gets cold, and that knows if it can't find shelter tonight could be a very long night. You don't think about tomorrow. You don't think about the far future. In this moment, every thought tightens around one simple question. How do you survive tonight? Snow keeps falling. Not loudly, not violently, just thin layers, steady and even covering the ground, covering the footprints you just made. Everything becomes more alike, more white and more cold. The space feels like it's been drained of sound. Even the wind seems to get swallowed by that endless, blinding white. Your body begins to slow down. Not because you're relaxing, because your energy is running out. Every step feels heavier. Your joints stiffen. Your fingers start to lose sensation. You have to clench them, press them close to your body, trying to protect the fragile warmth that's retreating deeper and deeper inside. In this world you have no modern tools, no machines, no devices to help you. The only thing you have is instinct. Instinct that recognizes danger. Instinct that searches for cover. Instinct that understands human beings weren't born to fight winter, only to learn how to tuck themselves beneath it. Human fragility becomes painfully clear in moments like this. No explanation needed, no comparison required. Just stand still in the cold wind and the stretching darkness and you understand you are not the center of the world. You are only a small, very small part of it, trying to adapt long enough to keep existing. A sense of alertness slips into you. Not panic, but a quiet, steady awareness. Your ears listen harder. Your eyes study more carefully. Your body holds back a portion of its strength, afraid to let go. You know a single mistake could turn everything dangerous. But alongside that alertness, another feeling begins to rise. A very ancient desire, the desire to be sheltered. Not sheltered by luxury, just a place out of the wind. Just a space that isn't fully exposed. Just somewhere the cold can't reach quite so deeply. You're not searching for comfort, you're searching for safety. In the long stillness of winter, that feeling becomes clearer than ever. When humans face nature, they don't dream of victory. They only hope to stay still, to exist, to keep breathing through the night. Even the rhythm of the world slows down now. Nothing happens fast. No great event arrives. Only one moment after another, cold, sharp, and real. This story doesn't need a climax. It only needs you here, feeling every stream of wind, every small tremor in your body, every careful step across the snow-covered ground. And then, in that raw exposure, inside that long darkness, and the cold that clings you, begin to realize something important. If human beings survived winters like this, then somewhere in the dark, there must be a place where nature softens even. Briefly, a thin boundary where the wind moves slower, where the cold eases just a little. And that thought begins to guide your feet forward towards something ahead, where in the faint blur of snowfall, a darker shape is slowly emerging against the endless white. You're not sure when you first noticed it. Maybe it was when the wind suddenly shifted direction. Maybe it was when the snow in front of you stopped blowing straight into your face and began sliding off to either side. Or maybe it was simply because something deep inside you, something instinctive, recognized a detail that was small, faint, but powerful enough to hold on to life, a patch of darkness that didn't belong in the endless white. In the middle of the snowstorm, the mouth of the cave doesn't reveal itself clearly. It doesn't welcome you. It doesn't glow. It's just a deeper shadow in the world around it. A place where the wind seems to slow, where snow no longer flies straight but falls at an angle toward the ground. You stop for a moment, not out of doubt, but because your body is weighing the choice. Survival instinct knows that every shelter carries risk, but standing still in the freezing wind isn't an option either. You take one more step, then another. Each step toward the cave is slow, deliberate, almost as if you're asking nature for permission to tuck yourself into one of its corners. As you get closer, something subtle happens. The sound changes. The wind no longer strikes your ears directly. It bends, splits, and slips away along the rock. The noise grows duller, more distant, as if an invisible door has just closed between you and the storm. The moment you cross that boundary, nothing dramatic happens. No loud sound. No feeling of triumph. Just a very small difference, yet enough for your body to understand you're no longer completely exposed. Inside the cave, the light is dimmer. Your eyes need a moment to adjust. The rock around you is rough, dark, marked by time far older than human memory. When your hand brushes against the stone, you feel its cold surface. This cold is different from the cold outside. It doesn't lash or cut. It's still, steady, quiet. The wind is still there, but it's been held back. Only faint currents move near the cave entrance, not strong enough to make you shiver any further. Your body responds immediately to this change. Your breathing slows without effort. Your shoulders drop slightly. Your muscles loosen just a bit. This isn't full relaxation. It's the first sense of relief after a long stretch of tension. You're standing in a very specific place. Not completely safe, but no longer bare. To people of that time, a cave was more than stone and darkness. It was a fragile boundary between two worlds, outside a brutal winter of cutting wind and endless night. Inside, the possibility of lasting through the night. You feel that truth clearly without needing to put it into words. You move deeper inside, one step at a time. The sounds of the outside world fade as if they're retreating behind you. The wind becomes a distant breath. Snow no longer touches your skin. The space closes in, wrapping around you with rock shadow and relative silence. Something shifts inside you. Alertness remains, but it's less sharp. The tension hasn't vanished, but it has softened. In its place, something fragile and cautious begins to appear, yet impossible to deny hope. Not a grand hope, not certainty, just the thought that maybe tonight you won't have to face the freezing wind head-on. The cave promises nothing. It doesn't guarantee survival. But it offers a chance, and in a primitive world like this, a chance is priceless. You don't need more than that. Just a place to stop. A place where your body doesn't have to fight constantly. A place where survival instinct can rest for a moment. Inside the cave, time begins to slow. Minutes lose their edges. You don't know whether it's day or night outside. You only know that, here in this darkness, life moves more gently. Everything unfolds more slowly, more softly. The feeling of being held doesn't arrive all at once. It comes gradually as you realize the rock around you doesn't move, doesn't shift, doesn't attack. It's simply there, enduring as it has been for thousands of years before you arrived, and as it will remain long after you're gone. That stability, cold and rough as it is, carries a strange sense of trust. You don't need logic to understand this. Your body already does. Your heartbeat slows, your breathing deepens. You're still tired, still cold. But you no longer feel pushed out of the world. Here inside the cave, you're allowed to exist without constant resistance. This is the first psychological turning point, not from fear to absolute safety, but from complete exposure to partial shelter. And as you stand still in that space with the wind outside reduced to a distant sound, you begin to realize something important inside the cave. The air doesn't keep getting colder. It stays the same, stable, as if this place itself is preparing your body to enter a different state. One where the cold is no longer a shock but a steady background, gentle enough for you to finally begin to let go. When you stand still long enough inside the cave, your body begins to notice something subtle. Not through thought, but through a deep physical awareness beneath the skin. The cold is no longer changing. It isn't increasing. It isn't fading. It stays where it is, as if it has found its own balance. The air inside the cave isn't warm in any modern sense. It doesn't embrace you. It isn't comfortable. But it doesn't attack either. There are no sudden drafts sliding down your neck, no sharp gusts forcing your body to flinch. The temperature here remains steady quiet, even like a slow heartbeat that never rushes. You breathe in. The air is no longer razor cold. As it enters your lungs, it feels softer, slightly heavier, carrying the scent of stone and faint moisture. With each exhale, you no longer feel the urge to rush to trap warmth before it escapes. A body that has been braced for constant defense begins to understand something important here. It doesn't need to react all the time. This change doesn't arrive suddenly. It comes so slowly it's almost unnoticeable unless you're paying attention. Your shoulders sink a little further. Your jaw loosens. Your fingers, still cold, no longer burn with numbness. Your body begins to stop warning, stop urging, stop tightening. In a primitive world, stable temperature is incredibly valuable. Not because it brings comfort, but because it brings predictability. When the body knows what comes next, it can let go. When there are no sudden shocks of cold, energy isn't wasted on reaction. And in this quiet moment you begin conserving strength for something more important: rest. You stand or sit leaning against the rock wall. Your back presses into a surface that is rough, cold and hard. But this cold doesn't sink deep. It stays at the surface, never pushing inward. Your body accepts it as a fixed reality, and in that acceptance a strange sense of calm appears. The space around you is still dark, but darkness inside the cave is different from the darkness outside. It isn't endless. It doesn't swallow you whole. It is shaped by stone, by the ceiling above, by contours. Your eyes slowly begin to recognize. This darkness has form. It has boundaries, and that makes it less frightening. You begin to notice a new rhythm in your body. Your heart beats slower. Your breathing deepens. Each breath no longer carries urgency. No pressure, no strain, just a steady repeating pattern like an ancient lullaby the body has known for longer than memory. Within that stability, your mind softens as well. Thoughts no longer tumble one after another. The chaotic images of wind, snow, and endless darkness fade. Everything becomes simpler, clearer. You don't need to imagine the future. You only need to remain in this moment. The first feeling of safety doesn't arrive as joy. It comes as quiet relief, like setting down a burden you've carried for too long, and only then realizing how tired your shoulders were. This sense of ease is small, fragile, but enough to loosen the tension that has been stored deep in your body. You barely hear the wind anymore. It has become distant background noise, too faint to overpower the stillness inside the cave. This space begins to develop its own rhythm, a slow rhythm, a steady rhythm, one that doesn't push or demand. For people of that time, this is the moment of transition from existing in danger to existing in acceptance. Not total safety, but enough safety to pause. Enough safety for the body to allow itself a brief rest, and when the body permits that the mind follows, you become more aware of yourself. The weight of your body, the fatigue settled into your muscles, the dull ache of hunger. But none of these sensations feel sharp anymore. They feel rounded, softened, as if wrapped in a layer of stillness. The stable temperature of the cave doesn't just preserve your body. It keeps you here in the present, here in this space, here with yourself, not pulled away by fear, not driven forward by cold. And as that stability continues, when your breathing has truly evened out, when your body has lowered its guard, you begin to notice smaller details in the space around you. Faint, distinctive scents, quietly existing in the darkness of stone, and time waiting to be sensed by a mind that is finally calm enough to listen. Once your body has released its tension, once your breathing has become steady and calm, another sense begins to speak. It isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It simply exists, quietly like a soft layer settling over the space around you. It is scent. The smell of the cave isn't obvious at first. It doesn't rush toward you. It isn't sharp. It spreads slowly, gently, following the deepening rhythm of your breath. As you inhale, the air carries the scent of cold stone, ancient minerals, and damp earth that has rested here through countless winters. This scent isn't pleasant, but it isn't unfamiliar either. It doesn't smell like flowers. It doesn't smell like dry wood. It doesn't resemble anything designed to please human senses. It is the smell of a place that has existed for a very long time and will continue to exist long after you're gone. A scent that doesn't change quickly. A scent that doesn't hurry. A scent that carries time within it. You realize you don't need to like this smell in order to accept it. Your body receives it naturally, as if it has known it from somewhere far back. The damp stone scent settles into your lungs and stays there without discomfort, without resistance. It simply remains. And that act of remaining begins to calm your mind. In the primitive world, scent isn't decoration. Scent is a signal, a memory, a presence. The smell of damp stone tells you something quietly, deeply. This place is not unfamiliar with life. You don't see clear signs of people. No drawings, no tools set before your eyes, but the smell of earth, of stone, of accumulated moisture carries a silent message. Someone has been here before. Other bodies have breathed in this space. Long nights have passed in darkness just like this. That feeling doesn't create clear images. It doesn't lead to a specific memory. Instead, it stirs a vague sense of nostalgia difficult to name. A feeling of familiarity you can't explain logically, like stepping into an old room you've never visited yet somehow recognize. The scent of damp stone doesn't tell a story. It reminds. It reminds you of nights without electric light, of times when humans lived more slowly, breathed more slowly, of moments when existence didn't need to be proven, only sustained. You notice that this scent doesn't change from breath to breath. It remains stable, even like the temperature of the cave itself. No surprises, no shocks. That stability allows the scent to become part of the background, part of the quiet sense of safety taking shape. As you breathe more deeply, the mineral and earth tones sink in slowly, unhurried. They don't stimulate your thoughts. They don't pull you into analysis. They simply keep you here with your body, with the present, with the space around you. Scent has a very particular path into the subconscious. It doesn't pass through logic. It doesn't ask for explanation. It touches deeper layers where primal memory rests, where humans once lived closer to nature, closer to stone and soil, closer to simple shelters. A sense of closeness begins to spread. Not closeness to a specific person, but to the very idea of being human. You understand that you are not the first to seek a place like this. Before you, others leaned into stone, breathed damp earth, searched for stillness through long nights. That closeness doesn't overwhelm you emotionally. It simply softens the remaining sharp edges of the mind. You don't need faces. You don't need stories. You only need to know this: you are not entirely alone in this experience. The rhythm of the world continues to slow. The senses stop competing for attention and begin to blend together. Stable temperature, bounded darkness, familiar damp stone. Together they form a quiet foundation, thick enough to muffle the last traces of worry. You begin to understand that at a very deep level, humans don't survive on warmth alone. Humans need signs of familiarity, and sometimes the things that are imperfect, not pleasant but enduring and real, like the scent of damp stone, offer a deeper sense of safety than any comfort ever could. There's no need to think further, no need to analyze. Just keep breathing, slowly, evenly, letting the cave's scent stay with you like an ancient memory slowly opening. And in that space, when the body is calm enough, when the senses have softened, a very small light is about to appear, not bright, not harsh, just enough for the darkness to step back one more pace. The light appears very gently. It doesn't flare up. It doesn't blind. Just a thin thread of brightness sparked when two stones touch in the darkness. The sound is soft, almost inaudible. A spark drops onto dry kindling, then disappears. Another spark. And then in that slow patience, the fire begins to breathe. At first it's only a fragile glow, trembling as if unsure whether it should stay. You don't rush. You know fire needs time, just as the human body needs time to settle. You wait quietly, letting the fire find its own rhythm. As the small flame steadies itself, light spreads outward, touching the cave walls, the stone floor, the hands resting nearby. The darkness doesn't vanish. It simply steps back, making room for a modest circle of warmth. At the center of that circle, the fire is there, alive and present. The light transforms the space instantly. The hard edges of stone soften. Shadows flicker gently with each movement of the flame. The cave, once deep and still, now carries its own rhythm. The light doesn't stand still. It moves slowly, steadily, like a warm heartbeat pulsing inside the dark. You feel the warmth begin to spread. Not quickly, not intensely, just in thin layers touching your skin, pausing, then staying. This warmth is unlike anything you've felt during the long night. It doesn't come from your own body. It comes from outside and yet feels deeply familiar. Fire doesn't just warm you. Fire keeps you company. It makes small sounds, soft crackles, gentle, repeating. Each sound is a quiet confirmation that life is present in this space. You don't need to stare at the flames. Simply knowing the fire is there brings a profound sense of ease. In the primitive world, fire isn't a tool. It is the center. Everything slowly arranges itself around it. Firelight draws a clearer boundary of safety than stone or darkness ever could. Inside its circle, your body is protected from deep cold. Beyond it, darkness still exists, but it has been pushed a little farther away. You sit or lie near the fire at just the right distance, not close enough to burn, not far enough for the warmth to fade. Your body adjusts instinctively, as if it has done this for countless nights before. Instinct knows exactly where to be. The firelight reflects on the cave walls, forming slow, indistinct shapes. They don't tell stories. They don't ask for attention. They simply move gently, giving your mind something soft to rest against. Now the fire feels like a living being. It needs care. It asks for respect. It grows when more wood is added, shrinks when the space grows quieter. It responds to air, to movement, to everything around it. And in that liveliness, you no longer feel alone. Warmth spreads not only through your body but through your mind. Not bright joy, just a deep, grounded reassurance. A sense that at least in this moment, you are exactly where you need to be. Fire brings light, but more importantly, it brings order. Order to time. Order to space. Order to existence itself. With fire, you know where the center is. You know what is near and what is far. You know when it is time to stay and when it is time to rest. The warmth allows your muscles to loosen even more. Fatigue, already softened by the cave's steady calm, can finally begin to dissolve. Your body no longer needs to save energy for constant defense. It allows itself to rest. There is nothing you need to do. No thinking. No arranging. Just remain there within that small circle of light, letting the fire touch your skin, letting warmth sink deeper layer by layer. The fire doesn't rush you. It waits at your pace. And in that quiet presence you realize the fire isn't only pushing back the darkness outside. It's easing the darkness inside as well, the vague worries, the lingering tension, the nameless fears. All of it softens little by little to the steady rhythm of gentle crackling. You don't need to know why. Your body already does. Once the fire has settled, once the light has become a natural part of the cave, once the warmth is enough for you to fully let go, time itself begins to feel different. As if the fire has quietly replaced every sense of hours and minutes, guiding you into a deeper, slower night where rest becomes the most natural thing in the world. Once the fire has settled into its role, once the light no longer feels new but becomes a natural part of the space, you begin to notice something strange. Time no longer moves the way it used to. There is no ticking, no numbers, no clock to hold on to. Instead, you watch the fire. The flame is unhurried. It doesn't jump or rush. It moves slowly, evenly, as if breathing. Each gentle flicker sends shadows trembling along the cave walls, then settling again. No moment is exactly the same as the last, yet all of them pass with the same familiar rhythm. In this world, fire doesn't just provide warmth. Fire shapes time. You don't need to know how deep into the night it is. Your body already knows. It knows by the way the flame lowers, by the shift in color from bright to muted, by how the fire no longer stretches upward but gathers itself smaller, calmer. The wood burns more slowly. The crackling grows quieter. The space feels thicker. Stillness deepens. You don't think about it. You simply feel it. Time is no longer something to measure. It is something to move with. As the fire softens, your body follows. Your shoulders sink a little more. Your eyelids grow heavier. Your breathing lengthens deep and steady without effort. Inside the cave, there is no sharp divide between day and night like in the modern world. There is only light and darkness. And as the light begins to yield, your body understands that it is time to slow even further. Fire replaces every clock, not with sound, but with gentleness. You look at the fire, but without focus. Your gaze drifts. Your mind doesn't cling to any single shape. There is only soft, repeating movement, just enough to keep you here in this moment, not pulled backward into the past, not pushed forward into the future. Your body learns how to rest by watching the smallest changes in the flame. When the fire no longer needs constant tending, when it sustains itself on what has already been given, you too no longer need to do anything more. Everything essential is in place. Shelter, warmth, light, and a sense of presence, if only the quiet knowledge that others have been here before are here in memory. Drowsiness doesn't arrive like a wave. It comes like a thin layer of mist, very light, very slow. It settles over your body little by little. You don't resist it. You don't actively invite it either. You simply allow it to arrive, following the natural rhythm the fire is leading. Time inside the cave does not rush you. There is nothing to complete, nothing to remember. There is only a long night and a body that is allowed to enter it. You realize that in this moment humans do not decide to sleep. They are guided into sleep. By the fading light, by warmth that is sufficient, by a space that is safe, by a body that no longer has a reason to stay awake. The fire is lower now, but it remains. It doesn't vanish suddenly. It holds its presence like a quiet promise that darkness is not empty. In that dim glow, you feel permitted to release the final thread of control. Any remaining thoughts soften. They slow. They dissolve more easily. You don't follow them. You let them pass like shadows on the cave wall, appearing and disappearing with each small movement of the flame. Your body has learned a different rhythm now. The rhythm of night, of winter, of generations long gone. A rhythm not broken by schedules, not divided by tasks. Just life slowing down in order to survive, to recover. And within that rhythm you begin to feel a very basic need rise to the surface, the need to lie down. To place your body on something lifted away from the cold stone. To curl inward like a creature returning to its nest after a long day. The fire has finished its work for this night. It no longer needs to guide you. It only needs to keep burning softly, steadily in one corner of the space so your body can move into the next step, a quiet, practical, deeply primal act where you create a place to rest soft enough, warm enough to welcome the sleep that is now drawing near. As the firelight softens, as time no longer needs to be tracked, your body begins to search for the next step naturally, not through thought but through sensation. A familiar ancient urge to lie down. The stone floor beneath you is still cold. Not harsh, but enough to remind you this is not a place for sleep directly. Your body understands that clearly, and from that simple understanding, human creativity begins. No blueprints, no plans, only the need to rest and whatever is available. You gather the dry straw brought in earlier. Straw isn't soft in any modern sense, but it has its own kind of resilience. When laid on the cave floor, it forms a light cushion separating your body from the direct cold of the stone. Next comes moss, damp and spongy, holding air within it, carrying traces of retained warmth. Moss isn't gentle, but it knows how to create distance between your skin and the cold ground. Animal hide is spread on top. Rough on the outside, softer on the inside. When your hand touches it, the feeling isn't perfect, but it's enough to bring reassurance. The hide holds heat. It doesn't let warmth escape too quickly. It stays with your body like a silent layer of protection. Small branches are placed along the edges, not for beauty but to keep everything in place. Every element has a purpose. Nothing is excessive. Nothing is missing. Each piece is set down with an instinctive understanding of how the body needs to be supported. A primal bed is not something to display. It is something to be in. As you slowly lower yourself, your body meets the bedding one point at a time. Shoulders first, then your back, then your hips. Your weight spreads evenly, no longer pressing against any single hard point. The fatigue stored in your muscles begins to melt away little by little like snow easing under weak sunlight. Touch becomes the center of the experience now. Your skin clearly senses the difference between cold stone and the bed you've created. That difference needs no explanation. Your body understands it is being cared for, not by anyone else, but by the attention you've given to your own needs. This bed isn't elaborate, but it is enough. Enough to keep you safely off the ground. Enough to slow the loss of warmth. Enough to let your body relax without curling in too tightly. You no longer need to hold a defensive posture. You can draw yourself in comfortably, head slightly turned, legs gently bent like a creature that has found its nest. A sense of calm spreads slowly. Not absolute safety, but the feeling that everything necessary for tonight has been done. There is nothing left to fix, nothing more to prepare. In the primitive world, a bed is not furniture. It is the result of careful observation of cold of the body, of what allows humans to stay with sleep longer, deeper. You feel the animal hide beneath your hands, slightly rough but warm. You feel the straw beneath your back yielding softly with each breath. You feel the moss holding air, forming a thin but effective buffer. Together, these elements create a complete experience, without needing perfection. The bed now feels like a nest, not because it is beautiful, but because it fits. It cradles the shape of your body without forcing, without excess. It allows you to fully let go, to place your weight down instead of holding it. You don't need to think about sleeping. Your body already knows this is where sleep belongs. Your breathing slows a little more. Each breath deepens. Your chest rises and falls evenly. Any remaining thoughts lose their sharpness. They blur like firelight shadows on the cave wall, moving then dissolving. In this moment you realize something simple: care doesn't have to come from comfort. It comes from attention at the right time, from knowing when to pause, when to listen to the body, and how to create what's needed with what's available. A primal bed doesn't promise beautiful dreams. It promises rest, and as your body settles into the right place, warmth contained everything prepared for sleep, you begin to notice one last subtle detail in the space around you. The faint traces left behind by fire, ash, and smoke elements, not entirely pleasant, yet quietly contributing to a night that feels safer than before. Once your body has settled into the rough bedding, once warmth is held long enough that you no longer need to curl inward, the cave continues to reveal its honest truths. Not all of them are pleasant, but all of them have a reason to exist. The air carries a thin, suspended layer. You can't see it clearly, but you can feel it. It is smoke. The smoke isn't thick. It doesn't coil violently. It drifts slowly, clinging lightly to the ceiling of the cave, then settling like a long breath just released. When you inhale, your throat feels a mild sting. Your eyes grow slightly watery, not uncomfortable enough to demand reaction, but enough to remind you that the fire is still alive, still present. Smoke isn't here to comfort you. It's here because the fire is here, and fire is necessary. In the primitive world, there is no clean divide between perfection and inconvenience. Everything arrives together. Warmth comes with smoke, light comes with ash, and humans learn how to live with these things rather than trying to remove them. Ash lies scattered around where the fire has burned, fine, grey, cooler than embers, yet still holding traces of heat. When ash touches the skin, it isn't soft, it isn't pleasant, but it carries a quiet function. Ash keeps insects at a distance. Ash dries the ground. Ash creates a small but effective boundary between the human body and whatever might wander in during the night. You don't need to think about that. Your body already knows. You sense that despite the slight sting in your eyes, despite the faint smell of smoke in the air, this space is safer than a place that is perfectly clean but cold and exposed. This safety doesn't come from perfection. It comes from acceptance. The smoke isn't driven away. The ash isn't swept aside. They're allowed to remain exactly where they are, fulfilling the roles nature has given them. And humans, in the quiet wisdom of survival, learn not to fight small inconveniences when they come in exchange for life. You lie there breathing slowly, allowing the smoke to exist. You don't try to inhale more deeply, and you don't try to hold your breath. You let your breathing adjust on its own, finding the most suitable rhythm for this space. A rhythm that isn't perfect but is stable. Calm doesn't come from everything being pleasant. It comes from no longer resisting. When you stop seeing smoke as an enemy, it becomes part of the background. When you stop resenting the ash, it becomes a layer of protection. In the long winter night, humans don't have the luxury of endless choices, only very practical ones. And the choice here is clear. Accept a little discomfort in exchange for a safer night. You don't feel irritated. You don't feel the need to change anything. There is a quiet maturity in the way your body lies, still accepting the space as it is. No demands, no expectations, just staying. The smoke thins as the fire stabilizes. The ash cools. Everything finds its own balance. The air isn't perfectly clean, but it's breathable. Enough to rest. Enough to sleep. The wisdom of ancient humans isn't found in controlling nature, but in adjusting themselves to fit within it. And in this moment you're doing exactly that naturally, without thought, without explanation. You lie there, eyes half closed, letting the smoke fade into a thin background layer. The ash no longer draws your attention. It quietly does its work while your body is allowed to sink deeper into rest. The space grows quieter. Sounds diminish. Movement slows. And once the inconveniences have been accepted, once there is nothing left to react to, once your body has learned how to be still among smoke and ash, you begin to hear the cave itself more clearly. The subtle repeating rhythms steady, gentle enough to carry your mind even farther into a deeper, quieter layer of the night. When everything has finally settled, when the space no longer asks anything of you, no more attention, no more adjustment, another layer of perception slowly becomes clearer. It doesn't come from light. It doesn't come from scent. It comes from sound. There aren't many sounds inside the cave, but they are enough. Somewhere deep in the darkness, far away, almost unreachable, you hear water dripping. Not in a mechanical rhythm, not in a hurry. Each drop arrives with a pause before and after it. Drip, then silence. After a while, another drip. That sound doesn't ask you to listen. It repeats on its own. It exists on its own. In the primitive world, there are no artificial noises to fill empty space, no unnecessary voices, no constant background noise. Only very small, very real sounds, just enough to remind you that time is still moving, but you don't need to follow it. Closer now, the fire makes its familiar soft crackling sound, not perfectly even but steady. Small pieces of wood shrink as they release heat, producing quiet, gentle sounds. The fire doesn't flare. It whispers a whisper that lasts through the night. Water dripping, fire crackling. The two sounds don't compete. They weave together slowly, like two different breaths, moving in harmony. No climax, no emphasis, just repetition. And that repetition begins to do its work. Your mind doesn't need to understand these sounds. It only needs to hear them, then loosen its grip on thought. Hear them, and let awareness grow lighter. Each drip of water feels like a period at the end of a short sentence, closing off a fleeting thought. Each soft crackle of fire smooths the remaining tension. Your body responds before you even realize it. Your heartbeat slows. Your breathing lengthens. Your muscles release any remaining readiness. No alertness. No preparation. Just stillness. The sounds of the cave don't demand your attention. They don't change to keep you awake. They don't rise or fall to create emotion. They simply remain steady, like an underground current flowing beneath the surface of consciousness. You don't need to imagine anything. You don't need to think about where the water comes from. You don't need to think about how the wood is burning. The sounds alone are enough to hold you in that space between waking and sleep, where thoughts blur and sensation deepens. In that state, everything becomes hazy, not dreamy but indistinct. The boundaries inside your mind soften. You no longer clearly separate inside from outside. There is only one continuous experience, slow and unbroken. The dripping water doesn't wake you. The crackling fire doesn't startle you. They simply repeat enough for your mind to let go. Ancient humans slept with sounds like these for thousands of years. No lullabies, no guiding words, just natural sounds, simple enough not to stimulate, steady enough to feel safe. The cave's sounds don't tell a story. They don't explain. They carry you. You begin to drift, not in any specific direction, with no clear destination, just drifting slowly deeper, following the rhythm of falling water and burning fire. Each drip seems to sink you further into the bedding beneath you. Each soft flicker of flame reminds you that everything is fine, that there is no need to wake, there is nothing to do, nothing to remember. The repeating sounds dissolve the last remaining sense of time. You don't know how long you've been lying there. It doesn't matter. What matters is this: your body has begun to sleep. In this moment, awareness doesn't disappear. It simply becomes lighter, like a leaf letting go of a branch, not falling fast, not resisting, just yielding to the air. And in that release, you no longer feel alone. Not because someone is speaking to you, but because the sounds around you are staying with you. As if the cave, the fire, the water, everything is awake so that you are allowed to sleep. Water dripping, fire crackling. They continue, steady, unchanged. And just as those sounds become the perfect foundation for sleep, when your mind has drifted far enough to cling to nothing at all, a very ancient sensation begins to spread, the feeling of lying beside other bodies, of sharing warmth and breathing together. As if in this darkness, you are not sleeping, alone. When the sounds of the cave have become a familiar backdrop, when the dripping water and crackling fire are no longer clearly distinguished, but blend into a steady rhythm, your body begins to sense something closer, something quietly present, around you. No need to look, no need to name it. Just the knowing that you are not alone. In that gentle darkness, other bodies lie close. Not crowded, not carefully arranged. Just a natural closeness shaped by survival and by habits carried through countless generations. Shoulder to shoulder, back near back. Legs drawn in, finding positions that don't disturb yet don't separate. Breath spreads through the enclosed space, not merging into a single sound but softly interweaving. One person's breathing slows and another follows. No one adjusts on purpose. Bodies simply learn to synchronize. Warmth begins to gather, not from the fire, not from animal hides, but from the bodies themselves. Each body releases only a small amount of heat, yet when close together that warmth doesn't escape quickly. It lingers, it layers, it forms a stable pocket of temperature, enough to make the long night far more bearable. In the primitive world, the idea of sleeping alone barely exists. Not because people couldn't be alone, but because being together was safer. Safer from the cold, safer from the darkness, safer from what could not be seen. You don't need to think about it. Your body already knows. When an arm accidentally brushes against your back, there is no instinct to pull away, only a quiet, deep acceptance. When someone's breath warms the air near you, it doesn't feel intrusive. It feels familiar, as if your body has slept this way before long ago, somewhere far back in memory. A sense of belonging spreads slowly, not attachment to any single person, but the feeling of being within a group. A circle of survival, where each person contributes something small to keep the night peaceful. No one speaks, no one needs reassurance through words. Presence is enough. The sense of safety now doesn't come from control, but from sharing. From knowing that if you shift in your sleep, someone will still be there. From knowing that warmth doesn't come only from yourself. From knowing that your breath is not the only breath moving in the dark. That safety runs deep, grounded, unspoken. In communal sleep, personal boundaries soften. The clear line between me and others fades. What remains is a group of bodies resting together, enduring winter together, waiting for light to return on another day. You become more aware of your body's weight as it's supported not only by the primitive bed beneath you but by the presence around you. That weight no longer feels heavy. It is quietly shared. Your breathing settles into the common rhythm. Not too deep, not too shallow. Everything finds balance. Your eyelids grow heavier, facial muscles release. Your jaw unclenches. Every place that carried tension through the long day is finally allowed to let go. In this darkness, you don't need to keep watch. You don't need to listen closely. You don't need to be ready to react. The other bodies here are doing the same, letting go together, trusting that this night will pass. Belonging doesn't need to be grand. It only needs to be enough. Enough for the mind to stop wandering. Enough for the body to stop holding distance. Enough for sleep to deepen without interruption from vague worries. Communal sleep isn't a romantic idea. It's the result of thousands of years of adaptation. And within that adaptation, humans learned something simple. The most precious warmth doesn't come from objects, it comes from closeness. You lie there, surrounded, held within a quiet circle. No one clutches, no one restrains. Just closeness, and closeness is enough. The sounds of the cave continue, but now they sit farther back in your awareness. Water, fire, all of it recedes, giving way to shared breathing and a thicker stillness. And within that communal stillness, when sleep has truly taken hold, you begin to feel something deeply natural, forming that even as the night remains calm, even as warmth is sufficient, certain things are kept close in quiet preparation, so that if the darkness outside were to shift, you would not need to wake in fear. When the warmth of nearby bodies has formed a quiet circle of protection, when the shared rhythm of breathing has become steady enough that you no longer need to listen to it, a very small yet very important detail quietly exists at the edge of your awareness. It isn't at the center. It doesn't demand attention. It is simply there, Near your hand, within natural reach, lie familiar tools. A stone knife rests at an angle, its handle turned toward your palm, as if it would take only the smallest movement to touch it. A spear leans lightly against the rock wall, not standing upright, not displayed, just resting where it belongs. They don't project threat. They don't tighten your body. They are present as part of the space itself, like stone, like fire, like warmth. You don't need to hold them. You only need to know they are there. In the primitive world, tools are not separated from daily life. They aren't used only when needed. They stay with people even in sleep, not to stand watch all night, but to calm a deep, ancient layer of worry, the fear that if something happens, you won't be completely helpless. This sense of reassurance doesn't come from being ready to fight. It comes from not needing to fight. As you lie there, your hand relaxed, knowing the stone knife and spear are within reach, your body allows itself to soften even further. Not because you expect danger, but because you've prepared enough to stop thinking about it. The tools feel like silent guards. They don't speak, they don't move, they don't intrude. They stand at the edge of the night, close enough to bring reassurance, far enough not to disturb sleep. You don't imagine worst-case scenarios. You don't speculate. The presence of the tools has already done its work, erasing subconscious worry before it has a chance to form. Your heart rate doesn't rise. Your breathing doesn't change. No alert signals appear in your body. That is the clearest sign of trust. Trust that tonight you don't need to stay awake to keep watch. Trust that if something were to stir, you could respond, but you don't need to wait for it. Within that trust, sleep deepens. Your body no longer keeps reserve energy for vigilance. It allows itself to truly rest. Shoulders sink. The belly softens with each breath. Fingers uncurl. The tools are no longer recognized as weapons. They return to what they truly are: familiar objects, shaped by human hands over countless days. They have been used to hunt, to cut, to prepare food. They know your hand, and your hand knows them. That familiarity brings a grounded calm. No drama, no tension. Just quiet confidence, like knowing a door has been closed even though you don't need to stand guard beside it. In the softening darkness of the cave, the tools lie still. They make no sound. They no longer reflect firelight. They blend into the space, becoming part of the night itself, as if the night too is being protected in its own way. You don't need to think about tomorrow. You don't need to make plans. You only need to know that if something is required, everything is where it should be. The sense of safety now doesn't come from controlling every possibility. It comes from placing trust in the right place, trust in simple preparation, trust in knowledge passed down through generations, trust in the fact that humans have learned how to sleep without surrendering safety. You lie there, eyes fully closed, your body sinking deeper into the bedding beneath you. Any remaining thoughts drift away slowly, leaving no trace. The tools beside you don't pull you back into wakefulness. They allow you to sleep more deeply because you know you are not alone in guarding this night. Silence grows thicker. Sound fades. And within that assured stillness you begin to sense clearly the delicate boundary between the safety inside and the world beyond, where distant nighttime sounds still exist, but now that boundary is strong enough for you to leave everything outside it and continue sleeping in peace. While everything inside the cave has found its place, the world outside continues to exist in its own way. You can't see it, but you know it's there. Because sometimes in the deepest quiet of the night a distant sound brushes lightly against the edge of your awareness. A howl, not close, not urgent, just clear enough to recognize. The wolf's cry echoes somewhere beyond the valley, bent by the wind, softened by falling snow, then slowly dissolving into the cold air. It isn't calling you. It isn't drawing nearer. It simply confirms something unmistakable: danger still exists out there. Your body reacts almost imperceptibly. No jolt, no tension, just a faint shiver along your spine, a very ancient signal still preserved to remind you. And then it stops. It doesn't linger. It doesn't spread. Because immediately after, your body recognizes something far more important. You are inside. Between you and that distant howl is stone. Thick, cold, unmoving. The cave walls rising around you are not a promise, but they are a very real boundary. They stand still as they have through countless winters before, blocking wind, blocking snow, and blocking unwanted footsteps. Near the mouth of the cave, the fire is still there, not flaring, not bright, but strong enough to cast a small, unmistakable circle of light. Fire does not drive wild animals away by force. It does something else. It marks a boundary. Inside the circle is where humans remain. Outside is the wild. You don't need to look outward to confirm this. Your body feels the difference clearly. The temperature inside is stable. Sounds are softened. The space has limits. Everything tells you that although danger exists, it is not here. The wolf may howl again, slightly farther away or slightly closer, but it doesn't change what matters. Because between that sound and your body are many layers of protection, stone, fire, community, and quiet preparation already in place. In the primitive world, humans never lived under the illusion of absolute safety. Safety did not come from denying danger. It came from clearly knowing the boundary, knowing what is inside, knowing what is outside, and knowing that tonight you are on the right side of it. The faint shiver fades slowly, replaced by something deeper reassurance, not because the wild animals have disappeared, but because you don't have to face them directly. Your breathing returns to its steady rhythm. Your heart does not race. Your muscles do not tighten. Everything quickly settles back into rest. That is the clearest sign that the boundary of safety has been accepted at a deep instinctive level. Inside the cave's darkness, you no longer need to listen. Any howl that remains is simply part of the night, not a threat. It exists beyond your reach, and knowing that keeps your mind from wandering toward it. The fire continues to burn slowly. The stone remains still. The tools stay within reach. The other bodies remain close. Together they form a structure that is simply but strong enough to hold you in sleep. Ancient humans did not need perfect walls. They needed boundaries that were clear enough. And on this night that boundary has been set, not through display but through the quiet presence of things that are real. You no longer think about wild beasts. They have not vanished from the world, but they have left your mind. And that is what matters most. Because sleep does not require a perfectly safe world. Sleep only needs a place where danger cannot reach. Stillness returns, thicker, deeper. The space inside the cave closes in like a cocoon. Outside the wind may still blow. Snow may still fall. Other creatures may continue moving through the long night. But all of that now feels distant, like background far away. You are here, inside, at rest. And when the boundary of safety has been confirmed without words, when the body holds no remaining vigilance, your sleep begins to drift deeper, slower, merging into the long rhythm of the winter night, an ancient rhythm where humans learn to yield to the season, to the darkness, and to the natural stretching of time itself. Once the boundary of safety has been established, once the outside world can no longer reach the inside, the night reveals its true nature. It is not hurried. It is not brief. The winter night stretches on, spreading like a dark blanket over the world, not urging humans to stay awake, not asking for anything beyond quiet presence. You don't know exactly how deep into the night it is, and it no longer matters. Inside the cave there are no markers to divide time into smaller pieces, only thicker darkness, still air, and your body, after all the simple preparations, begins to settle into the very slow rhythm of the season. Winter does not encourage haste. It does not favor quick movement. It invites slowing down. In this ancient biological rhythm, long nights are expected. When light is scarce, when cold holds everything in stillness, humans do not resist. They follow. They sleep more. They sleep longer. Not out of laziness, but because this is how the body preserves energy, how the mind is allowed to rest completely. You feel this clearly within yourself. Your eyelids are not just heavy. They no longer feel any need to open. Your breathing is deep and steady, with longer pauses between each inhale and exhale. Thoughts no longer take clear shape. They stretch, thin out, and settle like snow falling evenly onto the ground without sound. In this long night, there is nothing to finish, no goal to reach, no schedule to obey. Your body is permitted to remain still for hours at a time, undisturbed by artificial light, unpulled by obligation. Ancient humans lived this way through countless winters. They allowed the night to be long, allowed sleep to extend, allowed the body to adjust itself to the rhythm of the earth and sky, not because they lacked alternatives, but because they understood that what is most natural is often what lasts the longest. You no longer feel the need to control time. Time inside the cave has become a slow, wide current without breaks. You drift on it, no swimming required, no direction needed. You simply let it carry you. A deep sense of release spreads. Not the release of specific responsibilities, but the release of the idea that you must stay awake, the release of the need to remain alert, the release of the modern habit of breaking sleep into short, measured segments. In this biological rhythm, sleep is not what remains after the day. Sleep is the primary state. Everything else revolves around it. And when you allow yourself to sleep this way longer, deeper, slower, the body responds with a relaxation you do not have to force. You no longer feel the distinct edges of your body. The boundary between arm and torso, between legs and the bedding beneath you begins to blur. The body seems to dissolve into the space, not in the sense of disappearing, but in the sense of no longer needing to define itself. The long night does not make you uneasy. It calms you, because in this night there is no need to stay awake to watch. No sudden light to wake you. No sharp sound to pull you from sleep. Only the steady continuation of darkness and warmth. This is how humans once moved with winter. Not fighting the dark, not forcing activity when nature itself was resting. And within that alignment they found a deep form of balance between existence and rest. You sense clearly that in this long night, sleeping long is appropriate. Sleeping deeply is necessary. There is nothing wrong with letting sleep occupy most of the time. On the contrary, it is how the body prepares for the days ahead, when light will return, when movement will again be required. The rhythm of the world is now very slow. The story does not move forward. It settles. You no longer need to follow it. You only need to be inside it, like being held within a long breath without a clear ending. Deep relaxation is not a state to achieve. It is the natural result of having nothing left to do. And within that letting go, when the night has grown long enough, when sleep has become deep enough, a very gentle awareness begins to form that sleep is not merely rest, but an essential part of life itself. A quiet, yet decisive act, preparing for tomorrow by asking nothing of the present time. Understanding that gently closes this night in full acceptance, carrying you toward the final sleep of the story. When the night has grown long enough, when an ancient biological rhythm has guided your body deep into stillness, there is nothing left to arrange. Everything is already where it belongs, not because anyone commanded it, but because nature has whispered long enough for you to understand. Sleep at this moment is no longer the ending of a day. It is an act of survival. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet agreement between your body and the darkness. You do not resist the night. You do not try to stay awake. You do not seek more light. In this world, light has already finished its work. Darkness is not the enemy. It is the space for rest, the place where the body is allowed to draw inward, conserve energy, and prepare for another day, even if that day does not need to be considered yet. Your breathing stretches out slower, deeper. With each inhale, the air enters gently. With each exhale, the body releases a little more. There is nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to hold on to. Any final thoughts, if they remain at all, drift away softly, like a thin mist dissolving into dense darkness. No clear ending, no farewell. In the world of our ancestors, sleep was never a waste of time. Sleep was how humans survived. Sleep to recover. Sleep to stay warm. Sleep to calm the nervous system. Sleep so that when light returned, the body would still have enough strength to continue. You feel this truth in every muscle as it softens in the full weight of your body as it is finally set down. No holding, no lifting, all effort has ended. Not because you gave up, but because there is nothing left that requires effort. The darkness no longer presses in. It holds. It does not ask you to understand. It simply invites you to rest. And you accept that invitation naturally, simply, just as humans have done for tens of thousands of years, before electric light, before clocks, before nights were broken into pieces. Sleep does not arrive like a fall. It arrives as a gentle slide. You drift into it without noticing the transition. There is no sharp boundary between being awake and being asleep. Only a soft fading where awareness does not disappear, it simply stops gripping. Peace is no longer an emotion now. It is the background state. It doesn't need to be named. It doesn't need to be proven. It simply exists, complete and whole, in the quiet spaces between breaths. You no longer have to protect yourself from the night. The night has become an ally, a silent, vast patient holding the world still while you sleep, stretching rest generously across time. And within that generosity, you are allowed to let go completely. No worry about tomorrow, no concern for unfinished things. Because in this ancient rhythm of living, sleep itself is the best preparation for whatever comes next. Your breathing is now barely noticeable, steady, deep, needing no attention. Your heart beats slow and even. The body sends no more signals. Every system has shifted into deep rest. There is nothing more to add to this story. Nothing that needs to be concluded with words. Only a stillness, thick and gentle, spreading through the space. The fire burns very low, almost nothing but warmth. Sound dissolves into the background. Darkness closes in, not to trap you, but to shelter you enough for peaceful sleep. And if there is one final thing that remains, it is only this quiet knowing that right now, in this moment, you are doing the most natural and necessary thing humans have ever known. Sleeping to live, sleeping to continue, sleeping to remain in the world in the kindest way possible. You can let your eyelids grow heavy. You can let your breath stretch just a little longer. There is nowhere you need to go. Sleep is already here. When we look back at how prehistoric humans slept through the harshest winters, we begin to realize that what allowed them to survive was not strength and not control over nature. It was the ability to accept, to adapt, and above all, the deep bond between human beings. They didn't try to banish the darkness. They didn't fight the cold with tension. They learned to slow down, to sleep more, to stay closer to one another, and to let their bodies move in harmony with the natural rhythm of winter. For them, sleep was not wasted time. It was an act of survival, a space where the body could recover, the mind could grow quiet, and tomorrow could be prepared for in silence. They understood that not every moment requires doing more, thinking more, or trying harder. Sometimes the wisest thing is to let go and rest. In our modern lives today, even with soft beds, warm rooms, and light always within reach, many of us still struggle to sleep. We feel tired. We feel tense. This story reminds us that the problem may not be a lack of comfort, but that we've forgotten how to slow down, forgotten how to stay close to one another, and forgotten how to listen when our bodies ask for rest. If tonight you can dim the lights a little earlier, breathe a little slower, release the weight of a long day, and allow yourself to sleep just a bit sooner, then you are already stepping closer to the quiet wisdom of our ancestors. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story brought you a sense of calm, please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue these slow journeys through history together, where the past helps us sleep more peacefully in the present.